Milo yanked the leash out of Zara's hand before she even understood what was happening. One second she was digging in her bag for her passport at Incheon Airport, the next her fingers closed on empty air and the leash snapped free. The small brown dog shot forward like a bullet, claws skidding on polished floor, tail low, weaving through suitcases and legs as people shouted in surprise. "Milo! Milo, stop!" Zara cried, heart slamming, her sneakers sliding as she sprinted after him. Heads turned. An announcement boomed overhead about final boarding, tinny and far away. Someone jerked a rolling suitcase out of Milo's path. A little girl squealed and pointed. A man cursed as hot coffee sloshed from his cup. Zara heard none of it properly. All she saw was the blur of her dog sprinting like he'd just spotted his whole world on the other side of the terminal. "Milo!" she shouted again, breath tearing in her chest. He didn't even look back. He darted past a group of businessmen and straight toward a cluster of people in sleek black suits. They weren't just travelers, they were security. Serious ones. Earpieces, stiff shoulders, scanning eyes. At the center of them stood a woman in a cream coat and high heels, head slightly bent as a man in a suit murmured in her ear. Her hair was smooth and dark, her skin pale, her posture perfect in that way Zara had come to recognize in rich Koreans who had never worried about rent or immigration paperwork. Milo skidded to a stop at her feet and let out a broken, desperate whine. The woman flinched, looking down. For a heartbeat she just stared. Then, right in front of everyone, her composure cracked. "Milo," she whispered. Her voice was soft, disbelieving, like someone waking up inside a nightmare they'd been living in for years. Her hands trembled as she slowly crouched. Milo launched himself into her arms, nails scrambling, licking her fingers, pawing at her like he'd been waiting his whole life for this exact second. Her face twisted, her eyes shining with something too raw to hide. "Hana, stay back," one of the bodyguards warned in Korean, stepping forward. Zara skidded to a stop a few feet away, lungs burning like she'd swallowed fire. She caught the end of the leash, fingers shaking as she wrapped it around her hand. Sweat clung to her temples, her braids slightly messy, her brown skin glowing under the harsh airport lights. Her other hand clutched the strap of her backpack, knuckles brushing the silver anklet she'd looped there for safety. "I'm so sorry," she rushed out, dipping her head. He ran. I couldn't hold him." The woman looked up. Their eyes met, and the noise of the airport dimmed like someone turned down the volume. They looked nothing alike. The woman's features were sharp and delicate, fully Korean, pale skin, straight black hair, a thin nose, red lipstick. Zara's were soft and wide, unmistakably Ghanaian, rich brown skin, full lips, deep dark eyes framed by thick lashes. Two different worlds facing each other across a strip of airport floor. And yet something in that eye contact made Zara's stomach flip, like standing on the edge of a drop she hadn't known was there. The woman's gaze flicked down, drawn to the edge of Zara's jeans, where a thin anklet glinted against her skin. A small silver chain with a tiny lotus charm. Her own wrist, half hidden by her coat sleeve, carried a faint lotus-shaped birthmark, like a smudge of ink the world had never quite washed off. Her breathing hitched. "Where did you get him?" the woman asked, English slipping out instinctively. Zara blinked at the switch. "He was a stray," she said, still panting. "On the street. I found him 2 weeks ago." The woman's fingers tightened in Milo's fur. He whined and pressed against her chest, trying to climb inside her coat as if to escape the rest of the world. "You found him." Her eyes shone with something between hope and dread, like every part of her wanted this to be a mistake and a miracle at the same time. "Ms. Kim, we're late," the older man in the suit said in Korean. "Your father is waiting at the gate." 2 more bodyguards stepped closer, forming a human wall between the woman and the rest of the crowd. One of them looked Zara up and down, cataloging her like a problem that needed to be moved, not understood. The air shifted, heavier. This was no normal passenger. "If you have a problem, we can compensate you," the older man added in polished English. "We'll arrange for another dog. This one belongs to." "He doesn't belong to anyone," Zara cut in before she could stop herself, voice rough from running in anger. "He was on the street. Skinny. Scared. No collar. I took him in. I've been feeding him, taking care of him, paying for his shots. He's mine now." Milo whined again, torn, looking from one woman to the other as if his heart had split in two. The Korean woman, Hana, apparently, swallowed. I didn't mean to cause trouble. She glanced at the men in suits, then at Zara again, like she was choosing between oxygen and chains. I have to go. Zara's heart squeezed. Everything in her screamed that this felt wrong. The way the men pressed closer. The way Hana's shoulders stiffened every time they spoke her name. The way Milo shook when one of them reached toward him. It's okay, Zara said more gently. I'm sorry if this scared you. Hana's stare held hers for a fraction of a second longer. Her gaze dropped once more to the anklet. The faint lotus mark on her own wrist seemed to burn. If I told you, she started, then her lips pressed shut, like invisible hands closed around her throat. No, I have to go. She gently pushed Milo away with shaking hands and forced herself to stand. The bodyguards moved instantly, closing in around her. One of them tugged her sleeve, steering her away like she was property being escorted, not a person with a choice. Milo let out a desperate bark and lunged after her. The leash snapped taut in Zara's hand, jerking her arm. Hana, one of the guards hissed under his breath. Your father said no scenes. Hana froze mid-step. Milo's whimper echoed like a bruise. Zara's chest ached in a place no doctor could find. People were watching now. Phones half raised, not quite recording but ready. Somewhere above, a camera blinked red, the moment already being swallowed into the airport's memory. If this was you, Zara thought numbly, if a dog ripped out of your hand and ran to a stranger, if that stranger looked like she knew something about your life that you didn't, would you stay quiet? Her mind jumped to the faceless audience she imagined when she listened to YouTube story videos late at night. People shouting at their screens, typing furious comments when characters kept silent. If you're watching this right now, the narrator in her head said softly, what would you want her to do? Would you want her to let this woman vanish? You can yell at the screen later. Just don't click away yet. This is only the first crack. The older man turned back to Zara one last time. Forget this happened, he said quietly. It will be easier for everyone. Easier for who? Zara wanted to ask. For me, or for the man hiding behind your, everyone? She said nothing. The words jammed behind her teeth. They guided Hana toward the VIP gate, toward frosted glass and private doors. Milo scratched at the floor, whining, straining against the leash so hard his paws slipped. His whimpers dug into Zara's ribs and stayed there long after Hana disappeared. That night, Milo refused to sleep. He paced Zara's tiny studio apartment in western Seoul, nails clicking on the worn wood, pausing only to stop by the bedside table and paw at the anklet she'd taken off. Each time she started to drift off, he woke her with a low whine, nose nudging the silver chain toward her hand. I know, she murmured, stroking his head in the dark. You miss her. The words surprised her as she said them. She lay on her back, staring at the cracks in the ceiling. Neon leaked through the curtains, painting faint shapes. Her body was exhausted from the airport chaos and visa prep, but her mind refused to slow. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Hana's face, composed and breaking all at once, eyes wet, fingers buried in Milo's fur like he was the only real thing in her life. They'd looked nothing alike, and yet, in that one look, something had flared between them. Not recognition exactly, but the ache of almost recognition. Like hearing a song you've never learned but somehow still know the next note too. Who are you? Zara whispered into the dark, not sure if she meant the dog or the woman. And why do I feel like I was supposed to know you already? Her thoughts drifted back, across oceans and years, to a shaded veranda in Kumasi. The smell of frying plantain in the air. Her grandmother's humming, soft and low. Zara at 8 years old, legs swinging off a wooden chair, scraping courage together. Where's my father? She'd asked. Her grandmother's hands had stilled over the bowl of rice. Far, she'd said after a moment. And not for you to worry about. What about my mother? Zara had pushed. You always say she's resting. Where? Far as well, Grandma had replied, eyes shiny. You have me. That is enough. Back then, Zara had accepted that. Enough was enough. Enough meant food and laughter and a small room full of love. But lying in her Seoul apartment now, with a restless dog and a stranger's face etched behind her eyes, enough suddenly felt like a word adults used when they didn't want to say, I'm hiding something. Milo let out a tiny, broken sound in his sleep, like a dog dreaming of being locked out of his own home. Zara closed her eyes and pretended she didn't feel exactly the same. Morning didn't fix anything. It just made everything sharper. She fed Milo, gulped down instant coffee, and tried to focus on the list of things she had to do before her visa appointment. But every time she picked up her documents, her thumb found the anklet in her pocket, the metal warm from how many times she'd touched it. Each brush of the lotus charm pulled Hana's wrist back into her mind. That faint birthmark. That flash of fear when she saw the anklet. The assistant's words, "Your father said you are not to make contact with her." Zara wasn't fluent enough to argue with every nuance, but that word had sliced through the language barrier easily. By noon, the tension in her chest felt like a band tightening with every breath. "Fine," she muttered, dropping her pen and kneeling to clip the leash on Milo again. "You win, troublemaker. We're going back to the airport." Milo wagged his tail, cautious, like he half understood and half feared what that meant. On the subway ride, Zara stared at her reflection in the window, the blur of her dark skin, tired eyes, the braids she'd done herself on Sunday. The girl in the glass had always been a question with half the answer missing. Ghanaian by upbringing, but born in South Korea. No father in her photos. A mother who existed in a single fading picture and a few stories grandma only told when she was tired enough to forget her own rules. She traced the outline of the anklet in her pocket with her thumb, the lotus charm. Small, sharp comfort. What if that woman yesterday? Her throat tightened. She forced herself to breathe. No. Don't start making dramas in your head, Zara. Not everything is AK drama. But a smaller, angrier part of her whispered back, some dramas are just people finally telling the truth. The airport was calmer today. No dogs sprinting through crowds, no security cluster drawing eyes. People flowed around her like a river that had already forgotten the stone that disturbed it yesterday. No one pointed. No one whispered. If anyone recognized her, they looked away. Airports moved on fast. Zara walked to the information desk anyway, Milo trotting at her side. "Excuse me," she said in careful Korean. "Yesterday, there was a woman here. VIP area. Many bodyguards. Name, maybe Kim. She left with a flight." The staff member smiled the polite, professional smile they must have practiced in a mirror. Her eyes, though, flicked briefly to the security cameras overhead. "We can't share passenger information," she replied. "I'm sorry." Of course, Zara thought. You really thought they'd hand you a billionaire's schedule on a sticky note. She stepped away, Milo's nails ticking on the floor. As they passed a cafe, he jerked suddenly to the side, dragging her toward a quieter corner. "Milo," she protested, but let him pull her. "What now?" He led her to a spot near a humming vending machine. The smell of disinfectant and dog treats hung faintly in the air. On the wall nearby, a small security camera blinked red. Milo sat, tail thumping, and looked up at her. "What?" she asked, half laughing. "You suddenly speak CCTV now." He whined and nudged the wall with his nose, gaze locked on the camera. Zara followed his line of sight to the tiny sign beneath it. Customer inquiries, contact security office, level B1. Something sharp and electric stirred in her chest. "Okay," she breathed. "Let's see how far this goes, And if you were watching her then, wandering a Seoul airport with nothing but a stubborn dog, a cheap anklet, and too many questions, you'd probably lean a little closer to your screen. Because sometimes the moment someone decides to stop being quietly confused and starts hunting for answers is the moment their whole life cracks open. If you've ever felt like your own story didn't quite add up, like there were pages missing that everyone else pretended weren't important, you're not alone. You can drop that feeling in a comment or just hold it in your chest for now. Just stay with Zara a little longer. You might recognize pieces of yourself in what she's about to uncover. The security office on level B1 was smaller than Zara expected and somehow more intimidating for it. It smelled like instant noodles, stale coffee, and long shifts. A wall of monitors glowed in the dim light, dozens of small screens showing different corners of the airport, some playing live feeds, others frozen on still frames. A middle-aged guard in a navy uniform looked up as she entered, Milo at her heel. His eyes narrowed for a second at the dog, then relaxed. "Can I help you?" he asked in Korean. "I'm sorry to disturb you," Zara said, bowing slightly. "Yesterday, my dog caused some trouble upstairs. He ran to a woman with many guards. I just wanted to apologize properly." And, her fingers found the anklet in her pocket, gripping it like a question. And I wanted to know if everything was okay. The guard studied her face for a moment, really studied it, not just glanced at her skin color and moved on. Something in the tired honesty of her eyes seemed to shift something in his. The dog at gate 14, he said. We got calls about that. Your dog is famous now. A tiny smile tugged at his mouth. I don't want him to be famous, Zara said. Softly. He reacted like he knew her. And the way those men pulled her away, she shook her head. I'm worried. About him. About her. About what that meant. The guard's gaze slid to Milo, who was sitting obediently by her leg, eyes alert. Then he sighed. I can't show you personal data, he said. But I can show you what the cameras saw. That much is, just pixels. He turned to the monitors and tapped keys with practiced fingers. One screen flickered, rewound through hours of footage, then snapped back to the moment. Milo exploding into frame, security stiffening, Zara pounding after him. From above, it looked like a staged scene in a movie. Too dramatic to be real life. Too real to be scripted. Look, the guard said, pointing. Zara watched herself grab at the leash, watched Hana's face crumple as Milo reached her, watched the older man lean in. Seeing it from this angle made the whole thing feel stranger, like she was an extra in someone else's story. Wait, she said suddenly. That part. When he leans close to her. On screen, the man in the suit bent his head toward Hana, his mouth moving fast. Yesterday, Zara had been too far to hear properly. Now, even with the sound off, she could see the tension in his jaw. Do your lips read Korean? The guard asked dryly. Not yet, Zara said. But I'm a fast learner. He huffed a little laugh, then dug around in a drawer for a small remote, flipping to a different audio feed linked to that camera's zone. Static crackled, then voices pushed through, faint but there. Told you this would happen if you kept slipping security, the man's voice came, clipped. Your father said no more incidents with the press. I didn't plan this, Hana's voice answered, thin and strained. I just saw him. Him, the guard repeated under his breath. She meant the dog. On screen, Milo whimpered in Hana's arms. Zara's recorded self stepped forward. The audio picked up her own breathless words. He was a stray. On the street. I found him 2 weeks ago. The guard paused the footage at the exact second Hana's eyes dropped to Zara's ankle. You see that? He said, tapping the screen. She notices your anklet. She looks like she's seen a ghost. Zara stared. On the monitor, Hana's gaze flicked down, up, down again. Her hand clenched in Milo's fur. She knows something, Zara whispered. The guard glanced down. The anklet had slipped out from under Zara's jeans as she sat forward, silver chain, lotus charm catching the fluorescent light. That symbol, he said slowly. You don't see it much here. Not like that, anyway. It was my mother's, Zara replied automatically. Or, that's what my grandmother says. He leaned back in his chair, sighing through his nose like someone who'd been alive long enough to know better than to get involved, and still occasionally did. I can't show you where they went after this, he said. VIP passages. Private terminals. Not for civilian eyes. But I can tell you what people who like to talk say. Zara's heart jumped. I'm listening. He looked from Milo to her and back again, then lowered his voice anyway, even though no one else was there. You didn't hear this from me, he said. But the woman your dog ran to. That's almost certainly Kim Hana. Only daughter of Kim Do-yeon. He said the name like it was a bad taste. Should that mean something? Zara asked. The guard's eyebrows shot up. You really don't know, he said. He owns half the skyline you see when you look up. Construction, hotels, logistics, media. Very rich. Very connected. Very good at making inconvenient things disappear. Things like dogs. Zara tried to joke, but her voice wobbled. Things like news stories. Or people who ask the wrong questions. He looked at her more seriously now. Be careful. Curiosity is a good thing. But when it points at a man like that, it's like shining a light into a nest of snakes. On the monitor, the older man leaned closer to Hana again. The audio crackled. Your father said you were not to make contact with her, he murmured. Her. The word sent goosebumps skating up Zara's arms. It wasn't anyone. It wasn't strangers. It was her. Specific. Singular. She's just a stranger, Hana whispered back. Her voice broke. I'm going. The guard froze the frame on Zara's own confused face. Why would he say that? Zara asked quietly. The guard shrugged, but his eyes were troubled. Rich families have secrets, he said. Sometimes the rest of us are safer not knowing them. Zara nodded slowly. Her fingers curled around the anklet in her pocket until the edges pressed into her skin. Thank you, she said, bowing. I appreciate your help. I won't cause trouble. As she turned to go, he called out, Miss. She looked back. If it were me, he said carefully, and a dog ran like that to someone I'd never met, someone who wasn't supposed to exist in my story, I'd want to know why too. Just walk slowly, okay? Not everyone likes seeing lost things find their way home. On the train back, the city lights streaked past the windows like smudged stars. Zara sat with Milo in her lap, a rare thing, he usually preferred his own spot. His head rested against her chest. She could feel the rhythm of his breathing and, underneath that, the thud of her own heart struggling to keep up with everything she'd heard. You knew her, she whispered into his fur. You were her dog before you were mine. He didn't answer, of course. But he licked her wrist, exactly where the anklet's charm had pressed a faint imprint into her skin. When she got home, she fed Milo on autopilot and then sat at the small table by the window, dragging her old phone toward her. The screen was cracked. The battery icon blinked like it was always on its last warning. But buried in its contacts was the one person who held more of this story than anyone else, Grandma. She scrolled to the number saved as Grandma Heart, and stared. For years, every time Zara had asked about her parents, Grandma's eyes had filled with tears and she'd changed the subject, wrapping pain in jokes and chores and, go and bring me that pot. At some point, Zara had decided to stop pressing. Grandma had given her a childhood that wasn't fancy but was safe. Maybe the past was the price of that. But that was before an anxious billionaire's daughter looked at her anklet like it was an accusation written in metal. Just because a story scares you, Zara murmured to herself, doesn't mean it isn't your story. Her thumb hovered over the call button. If someone was watching her now, they'd probably be yelling, call. Call. As if volume could push courage through a phone line. She pressed call. The line rang. Once, twice. Crackle. Then the familiar voice slid through like palm oil on a hot pan. Zara, my child, Grandma said, warm and rough. Why are you calling at this hour? Is Seoul treating you well? Have you eaten? Zara's eyes stung. I've eaten, Grandma, she said, smiling despite the knot in her chest. How are you? How's your knee? Always telling stories, that knee, Grandma sniffed. It likes attention. Why do you sound like somebody stole your last plantain? Zara's fingers tightened around the phone. Milo lay at her feet, ears perked and body still, as if even he knew this wasn't a casual call. Grandma, Zara said slowly, I need to ask you something. And this time, please don't change the subject. The line went quiet. The kind of quiet that is full, not empty. I met someone yesterday, Zara continued. Heart pounding. At the airport. A Korean woman. Rich. Important. I don't know her. But when Milo saw her, he ran like he was running home. And she looked at my anklet like she was seeing a ghost. Grandma exhaled, long and tired. Zara. I'm not done, Zara cut in, surprising even herself. She had a mark, Grandma. A birthmark on her wrist. Same shape as the charm on my anklet. A lotus. Like the one you always said is special in our family. Silence. Then a small, shaky laugh that had no humor in it at all. Maybe it is coincidence, Grandma said eventually. The world is full of flowers, my child. And full of secrets, Zara said quietly. You always told me my father is far away. You always cried when I asked about my mother. You said I was born in Korea but belonged to Ghana. You never told me why. You belonged where you were loved, Grandma replied softly. Is that not enough? It was, Zara whispered. It really was. But now there is a dog in my house who misses someone he shouldn't remember, and a woman who looks nothing like me who flinched at my anklet, and a man in a suit who said her father told her never to talk to her. How am I supposed to tell myself it's nothing? On the other end, Grandma's breath hitched. Please, Zara said, voice breaking. I'm not a child anymore. If there is something I need to know, tell me. If people were watching this, they'd be screaming at you through the screen. They'd say, stop protecting her with lies. Give her the choice to be hurt honestly. I know you tried to shield me. But keeping me in the dark, was that for me, or for you? The honesty hung there, heavy and dangerous. When Grandma finally spoke, her voice sounded older than Zara had ever heard it. Your mother used to say you were too clever for your own good, she murmured. Maybe she was right. I learned it from you, Zara said, tears stinging her eyes. You're the one who taught me to listen when something doesn't sound right. There was a faint clink on the line, like a cup being set down carefully. A small, steadying breath. You remember the story I told you, Grandma began slowly, about your mother falling in love with a man who did not belong to our world. You said he was Korean, Zara replied. Rich. That his family didn't like her. I said many things, Grandma admitted. I left even more unsaid. She took another breath, the kind people take before they open a door they've been guarding for years. Your mother did not have one child, she said. She had two. Milo's ears twitched. Zara's heart stopped and then started again too fast. Twins, Grandma whispered. Born in a hospital in Seoul. 2 baby girls. One with your mother's skin. One with your father's face. The room seemed to tilt. You're joking, Zara croaked, even though deep down she knew Grandma never joked about things like this. I wish I were, Grandma said, her voice trembling. I saw them in the photo your mother sent before everything broke. 2 little girls, lying side by side. One looked like the Ghanaian sun. One looked like the moon over Seoul. You were impossible to mix up. Zara pressed her fist against her mouth to stop the sound rising in her throat. Why, she managed, did you never tell me? Grandma was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, the words came like stones. Because what came next, she said softly, was uglier than any child should have to carry. Milo nudged at Zara's knee with his nose, sensing her shaking. Your father's family did not want your mother, Grandma continued. They said she would ruin their name. A foreign woman with no rich father. No connections. They said a child who looks African would raise questions. A child who looks Korean would be easier to display. They forced her to choose. Zara whispered, throat tight. They never gave her a choice, Grandma replied. When she tried to leave with both girls, they stopped her. Papers were signed. Lies were stitched into official stamps. Your father's people kept the Korean-looking child. Your mother ran with you. By the time she reached me, she was different. Like somebody who had drowned and walked out of the water without her lungs. Zara leaned her head back against the wall, tears blurring the ceiling. I was going to tell you when you were older, Grandma said. Then older came, and you were happy in your small life. You talked about going to Korea one day to make your own story. I thought, why pour salt into a wound you have not noticed yet? But the wound was always there, Zara whispered. I just didn't know its name. She saw Hana again in her mind, cream coat, guarded eyes, fingers shaking as she held Milo. She heard the assistant's voice like a replay. Your father said you were not to make contact with her. So the woman at the airport, Zara said, the words tasting like iron, the one my dog ran to, the one with guards and rules, you're telling me she might be. I am telling you, Grandma interrupted gently, that your mother had 2 daughters. And only one of them grew up in my house. Zara's breath went shallow, like she'd been sprinting but never started. I have a sister, she said, barely hearing her own voice. A twin. And you never thought that might be something I'd want to know. I thought, Grandma whispered, that knowing she was taken would hurt more than not knowing she existed at all. I thought if I kept your world small, it would feel safer. I may have been wrong. Parents get things wrong too, my child. Even the ones you think know everything. Anger surged up in Zara's chest, hot and bright. You lied to me, she said, voice shaking. All these years. Every time I asked why I felt incomplete. You looked me in the face and acted like the empty space was my imagination. I did not pretend, Grandma replied. You are whole. You grew whole. You made yourself whole. Your sister's absence did not make you half a person. But yes, I kept the truth from you. And for that, I am sorry. Her voice cracked on the last word. The anger in Zara twisted into something messier, pain and love and betrayal tangled up together. She slid down the wall until she was sitting on the floor, Milo pressing into her lap like he was trying to pin her to reality. What happened to my mother? Zara asked, the question she'd carried since childhood finally stepping into the light. The silence on the line was thick. When Grandma spoke, it was almost a whisper. She did not survive it, she said. Some people drown in water. Some drown in decisions they never should have had to make. Your mother carried a guilt that did not belong to her until it crushed her. She died when you were 3. You do not remember. Oh, Zara breathed. The word was small. The grief behind it was not. The mother she'd built out of half-stories and imagination, laughing, strong, just somewhere else for now, had never had a chance to be that person. The woman in the photo had run with one baby and lost both in different ways. And my father? Zara forced herself to ask. His name is Kim, what? Kim Do-young, Grandma said, the name sharp and cold. He sent money for a while. Not to help, to soothe his conscience. Then even that stopped. He told his people to tell me he considered the African child no longer his responsibility. I told his people he was never welcome in my house anyway. So he kept the Korean-looking twin, Zara said slowly. Raised her rich, stamped his name all over her, and threw me away with my mother. He discarded you, Grandma corrected gently. Your mother raised you as best she could. I picked you up where the world dropped you. Since then, you have raised yourself with my hands at your back. Do not give him credit, even in your pain. Zara stared at the worn floorboards of her apartment through blurry eyes. My whole life, she said quietly, I thought I was just unlucky. Fatherless. Rootless. Now it turns out I was edited. Milo whined softly and licked the back of her hand. Do you know what he told your sister about you? Grandma asked. How would I? Zara snapped, then immediately regretted it. Sorry. That wasn't for you. He sent me one last letter, Grandma said. Years ago. He said he had told the girl her mother died in childbirth. That there was only one baby. That any rumors about another child were lies from bitter relatives. He wanted me to stop confusing things. Zara let out a short, harsh laugh. So he lied to her too, she said. He's consistent, if nothing else. People like him, Grandma murmured, are terrified of the truth. They build palaces out of lies and pray the wind never blows. Well, Zara said, wiping her cheeks with the heel of her hand, the wind owns a dog now. And that dog remembers things. She looked at Milo, who watched her with dark, worried eyes. Grandma, she said softly, if you don't want me to go looking for her, say it now. Grandma was silent for so long that Zara wondered if the connection had dropped. When she finally spoke, her voice had changed again. There was steel in it now. The same tone she used when market sellers tried to cheat her on yam prices. If the woman at the airport is your sister, she said, then she has spent her life breathing a story written by a man who couldn't face his own sins. She deserves to know that is not the only version. And you, my child, you deserve to see the face that's been missing from your mirror all these years. So you won't stop me? Zara asked. I have no right to, Grandma replied. Just promise me one thing. What? Zara whispered. If that man or his people try to make you feel small again, Grandma said, remember this. You did not grow up around marble floors, but you survived things polished people don't even have names for. You are not a discarded version. You are the original he was too weak to claim. Something in Zara's chest eased, just a little. I'll remember, she said, voice thick. And Grandma. Yes, my child. When this story ends up on some channel one day, Zara murmured, half joking, half serious, people are going to be angry at you for not telling me sooner. Grandma gave a shaky chuckle. Tell them to like the video if they forgive an old woman who was afraid, she said. Zara actually laughed, the sound rough but real. I'll think about it. After they hung up, the apartment felt too small for everything swirling inside her. She paced from door to window and back again, Milo shadowing her every step. A twin, she muttered. A billionaire father. A mother who died carrying a secret she didn't deserve. And a dog who loves someone he shouldn't even remember. She stopped at the window. The Seoul skyline stabbed into the gray afternoon, steel and glass, pretending to be solid. What do I do? She asked aloud. No answer came from the quiet room. But every cell in her body screamed that doing nothing now would be the real betrayal. Somewhere in this city, another woman, her sister, was living a life built on lies. Maybe she loved their father. Maybe she hated him. Maybe she thought Zara was dead. Every possible version hurt in a different way. Zara grabbed her battered laptop and flipped it open. The screen woke slowly, complaining. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, then typed, Kim Do-yeon Korea News. The results loaded, article after article. Business awards, charity galas, neatly buried scandals, photos of a sharp-faced man shaking hands with presidents, standing in front of hotel chains and construction sites. In one picture from a charity gala, he stood with a young woman at his side. Zara zoomed in until the pixels blurred. The woman wore an elegant navy dress, hair pinned back in a neat updo. Her smile for the camera was polite, perfect, and dead in the eyes. On her bare wrist, partially hidden by the angle, a faint lotus-shaped mark was visible. There you are, Zara whispered. She clicked the article. The caption under the photo read, Kim Group CEO attends annual Global Development Gala with daughter, Hana. Heir apparent. Future leader. A carefully chosen face for his empire. What about the other heir? Zara muttered. The one who grew up selling wakai with grandma. She scrolled through multiple articles, scanning for any mention of another daughter. There was nothing. No trace. The African child had been cut from the official script. Her phone buzzed, dragging her back. A message from Amma, her friend from church and from late shift survival. You good. You sounded weird in that voice note. Zara stared at the screen, then typed, You believe drama more than news, right? Amma replied almost instantly with a laughing emoji. Obviously. Why? Zara's fingers flew. I think I just found out my life is a full series and nobody gave me the script. Then, can we meet tonight? I need to talk. Proper talk. They met that evening in a tiny cafe tucked between a laundromat and a hair salon. The place was almost empty, one old man nursing a tea, a bored barista scrolling his phone. Amma swept Zara into a hug as soon as she walked in, Milo trotting in behind them. You look like someone who saw an angel and a demon at the same time, Amma said, pulling back to study her. What happened? Zara sank into a chair, Milo curling under the table with a weary sigh. How much time do you have? She asked. For you. Amma shrugged. All night. This cafe is dead. Talk. Zara told her everything. The airport. Milo bolting. Hana. The anklet. The security office. The name, Kim Do-yeon. The phone call. Twins. The forced separation. Their mother's death. The father's letter. The possibility, no, probability, that the woman at the airport was her sister. By the time she finished, Amma's drink sat untouched and her hand covered her mouth. Wait, Amma said slowly. So this Kim Hana, rich, Korean, future CEO, might be your twin. Like actual twin. Not, people say we look alike, twin, but, same mother, same father, same day, twin. Fraternal, Zara corrected automatically. So we don't look alike. But yeah, same ingredients. Just baked in different ovens. Amma blinked. Chai. Yeah, Zara said. I'm supposed to say something deep right now, Amma muttered. All I can think is, whoever is writing your life needs to calm down. Despite everything, Zara laughed. Tell me about it. So what now? Amma asked. You go to this man's office and shout, give me back my sister. That one will put security guards in your dreams. I don't know, Zara admitted. All I know is I can't unhear what grandma said. I can't pretend that girl in the cream coat is just some stranger my dog had a crush on. Amma drummed her fingers on the table. Okay. Forget real life for a second. If this was a story on YouTube, and you were watching this instead of living it, what would you want the girl to do? Not the safe answer. The honest one. Zara thought of all the nights she'd fallen asleep to strangers narrating stories about betrayal and miracles and slow justice. Thought of the comments always buzzing underneath. Don't let them get away with this. Find out the truth. Go back. Knock on the door. I'd want her to find her sister, Zara said quietly. Even if it's messy. Even if it hurts. At least then the hurt would be real, not just fog. Then that's your answer, Amma said simply. You already know what you're going to do. You just want someone to promise you it won't hurt. Can you? Zara asked. Nope, Amma said cheerfully. But I can promise I'll be here when it does. And I can tell you to be careful. Rich men with secrets are a genre on their own. I know, Zara said. Grandma basically said the same thing. Amma smiled, then added softly, Also, when you finally stand in front of her, your sister, remember to remember it. Not just with your eyes. With your whole body. There are people in this world who never get the chance to find the missing piece of their story. If anyone who knows that feeling is watching, they're still here just to see if you get to do what they couldn't. Zara took a deep breath. You think I should do this? She asked. I think you already started, Amma replied. You called your grandmother. You looked up his name. You came to talk. The first stone has already rolled. Now you either follow it, or you stand there pretending your hands are clean. Later, as they walked home, the streets were quieter. Lights reflected on wet asphalt. Milo sniffed around lazily, tugging them down a slightly different route. He stopped at a lamppost, sniffed, then tugged again, this time with sudden urgency. They followed his lead down a side street lined with office buildings and glass fronts. Zara almost walked past the brass plaque before the name registered. Kim Group, it read, in Korean and English. She stopped so suddenly that Milo nearly tripped. Amma whistled low. Speak of the devil and see his headquarters, she muttered. Behind the glass, the lobby lights were dim. A lone security guard sat at a desk, scrolling through his phone. On one wall, a framed photo showed Kim Do-yeon shaking hands with someone important, his smile sharp and rehearsed. Zara's pulse jumped. For a heartbeat, the urge to storm in, slap the anklet on the counter, and demand an explanation was so strong she actually took half a step forward. Then she remembered the airport guard's warning. Not everyone likes watching dogs find their way home. Not like this, she whispered. What? Amma asked. I can't just march in, Zara said, forcing herself to step back. He's been deciding what's real for people my whole life without even looking at me. If I go to him like this, I'm just playing into his script, begging for a line. So what, then? Amma asked softly. I need to choose my own entrance, Zara said. My own angle. My own timing. Not his. Amma squeezed her shoulder. Good, she said. Because if you walked in there right now, I'd have to drag you out by your braids, and that would be a very undignified way to meet your twin later. They laughed, the sound a little shaky but real enough to cut the tension. Back in her apartment, Zara sat at the table again, laptop open, Milo curling at her feet like a fuzzy question mark. If she couldn't reach Hana through their father, she had to find another path. She pulled up the gala photo again and zoomed in until the pixels blurred around Hana's face. Even in that frozen moment, there was something in the way Hana's shoulders angled slightly away from her father. Something in her eyes that said, I'm here, but my mind is somewhere else. Where do you go when no one is watching? Zara mused aloud. She typed, Kim Hana volunteer, then, Kim Hana charity, then, Kim Hana Seoul clinic. Most of the results were stiff corporate write-ups, carefully curated PR pieces. Then, buried 2 pages deep, she found something different, a local blog post from Busan. Heiress quietly funds free clinic day at Harbor. At the bottom was a single photo of volunteers in plain t-shirts. Among them, barely recognizable without makeup or formal clothes, stood Hana. Hair tied back, simple jeans, tired but genuine smile. Busan. Far from Seoul. Far from glass towers and marble floors. Far enough that maybe, for a few hours at a time, she could remember what it felt like to be a person, not a headline. There you are again, Zara whispered. Running somewhere your father doesn't own. Her cursor hovered over the clinic's name in the article. If you're still here with her, through airport chaos, family secrets, and all of this emotional heavy lifting, it means something in this story is hitting a nerve. You don't have to write it out loud. Just notice it. And if you want to see what happens when Zara finally follows this thin thread all the way to the harbor city where her sister tried to breathe, you already know what to do. Keep watching, keep listening. The train to Busan rocked gently beneath Zara's feet, but she felt like she was balancing on a wire. She sat by the window, Milo's head resting on her lap, eyes half closed. Outside, Seoul's towers thinned into smaller towns, then fields, then stretches of coastline flashing in and out of view. Each passing scene felt like a countdown. Her mind replayed everything, Grandma's confession, Amma's fierce support, the airport footage, Hana's face. Fear sat beside determination. They didn't cancel each other out, they just made each other sharper. At Busan station, the salty air hit her the second she stepped out. The city hummed differently from Seoul, slower but no less alive. Fishing boats bobbed in the distance. Gulls cried overhead like restless souls. The free clinic wasn't hard to find. Painted a fading blue, it sat on the corner of a street that smelled like sea and fried fish. Posters about blood pressure and diabetes covered the waiting room walls. People sat in metal chairs, waiting quietly. A young nurse in scrubs looked up as Zara entered with Milo. "Hello," Zara said in Korean, words careful but more confident now. "I'm looking for someone who used to volunteer here. Her name is Kim Hana." The nurse's expression shifted, surprise, wariness, something like recognition. She masked it quickly. "We have many volunteers," she said. "Why are you looking for her?" Zara thought about lying, about saying she was a cousin, a friend, a random fan. But she was already deep into a story built on other people's lies. She refused to add another one. "Because I think we're family," she said. "And I think she doesn't know the whole story either." The nurse's eyes widened despite herself. Milo gave a small, serious bark, as if adding, "And I vote she hears it." A door opened down the hallway. An older woman in a white coat stepped out, wiping her hands on a towel. "What's going on?" she asked. The nurse glanced between her and Zara, then gestured them closer. "Doctor, this woman is asking for Ms. Kim," she said. "She says they are family." The doctor's gaze slid from Zara's face to the dog, then down to the anklet glinting under the edge of Zara's jeans. Her expression tightened almost imperceptibly. "You're not the first to come asking about her," she said. "But you are the first who looks like she might be telling the truth." Zara's heart jumped. "So she was here," she said. "Recently." The doctor sighed, leaning against the doorframe. "She was," she said. "She came quietly. No cameras. No press. She didn't want people to know the CEO's daughter was here. For a while, she came every month. Helped at the clinic. Paid for treatments when she thought no one was looking." A small smile ghosted across her face. "But doctors notice when someone takes money out of their own pocket." "What happened?" Zara pressed. "One day, her driver came instead," the doctor said. Said Ms. Kim wouldn't be returning. Her father had other plans. "He found out," Zara said. "Powerful men always find out," the doctor replied. "They are not gods, but they are efficient. Still, sometimes they are slow enough to let someone breathe for a little while." She studied Zara closely. "Before I tell you more, I need to know something. Why should I help you pull her back toward the people she ran from?" Every time she came here, she looked a little more alive. If her father drags her away again, pain will follow. If you come with your story, it might be the last crack she can breathe through closing. The question hit hard. "I don't want to drag her anywhere," Zara said, voice low. "I don't want to push her back into that house or into some drama she doesn't choose. I want her to know that if she feels like something in her life is missing, it's not because she's ungrateful or broken. It's because someone took a whole person away from her and pretended that person didn't exist. She deserves to decide what to do with that. Not her father. Not even me." The doctor held her gaze, weighing the words. "And you?" she asked. "What do you think you deserve, girl from far away?" "I deserve to at least see the person whose absence has been sitting in my chest since before I knew her name," Zara said. "Even if she tells me to leave. Even if it hurts. I'd rather hurt with the truth than stay comfortable in a lie somebody else wrote for me." For a long moment, the only sound was the distant beep of a machine and the murmur of voices in the waiting room. Finally, the doctor nodded. "She rented a room near the harbor," she said. "Top floor above the bakery on the corner. Small balcony. She liked to stand there at night and look at the sea, like she was trying to remember something the water knew and she didn't." "Is she still there?" Zara asked. "I don't know," the doctor said. "But if I were running from my father's shadow, that's the first place I'd go back to." Zara bowed so deeply her hair almost brushed the floor. "Thank you," she said. "If this ends badly, you can be angry at me. Not at her." "Oh, I already planned on that," the doctor said with a wry smile. "But I hope I won't have to be." The harbor smelled like salt, fuel, and frying batter. Gulls wheeled overhead, complaining about everything. People moved with the unhurried efficiency of those who worked with tides and timetables. The bakery was easy to find, the smell of fresh bread called to her like memory. Above it, a narrow staircase led to 3 doors. The top one was slightly ajar. Milo sniffed the air, tail stiff but wagging. His body was alert, like he was stepping into a dream he'd had too many times. Zara swallowed and knocked gently. No answer. She pushed the door a little wider. Hello, she called in Korean and English. I'm sorry to intrude. Is anyone here? The room was modest but neat. A futon lay folded in the corner. A mug with a lipstick stain sat on the windowsill. On the small table, a notebook lay open, pen resting diagonally across the page. The last sentence trailed off mid-word, like its writer had been interrupted. Milo walked in, nose working furiously. He went straight to the futon, sniffed it, circled twice, then lay down with a soft sigh, nose pressed into the blanket. Zara's throat tightened. Dogs didn't fake recognition. Hana. She tried again, softer. If you're here, I swear I'm not here to hurt you. I just want to talk. I think the things we weren't told are choking both of us. Footsteps sounded on the stairs behind her. She turned. Hana stood in the doorway, a plastic bag of groceries dangling from one hand. Her hair was loose and slightly tangled. She wore jeans and an oversized sweatshirt. Without the armor of her cream coat, perfect makeup, and bodyguards, she looked startlingly human, tired, young, and a little lost. For a heartbeat, they just stared at each other. Zara watched the exact moment recognition hit Hana, not of her face, but of something underneath. The same tension in the shoulders. The same curve of the fingers. The anklets flash. Milo scrambled off the futon, claws skidding, and launched himself at Hana with a joyous bark. The grocery bag fell to the floor, apples rolling everywhere. Hana dropped to her knees on instinct, catching the dog in her arms. Milo, she choked, burying her face in his fur. You came back. You really. Her voice broke. Her shoulders shook. Zara looked away, giving them the space she would want for herself. Her eyes fell on the open notebook on the table. The last words written in slanted Korean read, "Who am I if I am not entirely his?" She swallowed. After a moment, the storm of Hana's tears quieted. She wiped at her face quickly with the back of her sleeve, as if ashamed of being seen vulnerable, even alone in her own rented room. When she finally looked at Zara, her expression shifted back into something more guarded, but the softness from a moment ago still clung to her features. You shouldn't be here, she said quietly. I know, Zara replied. But I am. Hana's gaze dropped to the anklet around Zara's ankle, exposed where her jeans had ridden up. Where did you get that? She asked, the question sounding like it had been sitting in her throat for years, waiting for a chance. My mother, Zara said. Or so my grandmother says. She wore it when she was pregnant. She sent a photo once. 2 babies. 1 bracelet. Hana's breathing stuttered. I have this, she whispered. She tugged up the sleeve of her sweatshirt. On her wrist, the lotus birthmark bloomed, faint but undeniable. For a moment, the room seemed to hold its breath. Something inside Zara's chest cracked open and flooded her with heat and cold all at once. There were 2 of us, she said, voice thin. I always thought that if there had been, Hana murmured, eyes shining, my father would have told me. He said my mother died when I was born. That the stories about a sister were just gossip. That anyone who said different was trying to hurt us. He lied, Zara said. To both of us. With different stories. Same purpose. They stood there, 2 women in a small room above a bakery, a dog between them, connected by blood and secrets, and a man who had tried very hard to pretend half of this picture never existed. How much do you know? Hana asked, sinking onto the futon, suddenly looking as tired as someone who had just run out of excuses to give herself. Enough to be furious, Zara answered, sitting on the floor opposite her. Milo settled between them, leaning against one, then the other, as if physically refusing to choose sides. Not enough to stop asking questions. They talked. At first, the words came hesitantly, like stepping onto a frozen lake you weren't sure would hold. Zara told her what grandma had finally confessed, the pregnancy, the hospital, the forced separation, the way their mother had fallen apart under the weight of a decision that wasn't hers. Hana told her what her father had constructed, the elegant lie about a weak mother who ran away, a single child, a family line spared from complications. My childhood was comfortable, Hana said slowly. Big house. Schools that cost more per year than this entire building. People always saying, yes, when they really wanted to say, no. But I Wasn't allowed to ask questions that made my father uncomfortable. If I tried, he would look at me like I'd betrayed him. If I cried, he would send someone else to deal with it. She glanced at Milo, her fingers stroking his ears automatically. He was the first thing that felt like mine. How did you find him? Zara asked. There was a construction site behind one of our hotels, Hana said, lips twitching with a fragile smile. He was hiding under a broken sheet of metal. Skinny. Dirty. Growling at anyone who came near. My father's men were going to chase him away. I picked him up instead. He bit me hard enough to leave a scar. She held up her hand briefly. A faint mark crossed her thumb. I told them if they threw him out, I would follow him, she continued. I held onto him like I was drowning and he was the only piece of wood in the ocean. Did your father let you keep him? Zara asked. He said no for 3 days, Hana said. I hid Milo in my room. Fed him scraps. Whispered things to him I never said to any human. On the 4th day, my father walked in unexpectedly, saw us together. Milo barked at him. My father laughed and said, fine. Keep your mutt. But remember, everything you love can be taken away. Zara flinched. That's not parenting, she muttered. That's training someone to fear loving anything. Hana gave a humorless smile. Eventually, the everything included me, she said. His daughter. His heir. His symbol. When I asked too many questions about my mother, he reminded me whose surname I carried. When I tried to say I wanted to do something other than prepare for his company, he reminded me who paid for my life. What did he tell you about your mother? Zara asked. That she was weak, Hana said. That she couldn't handle the pressure of their world. Sometimes he said she was sick. Sometimes he said she ran away. He changed the story depending on whether he wanted pity or anger from me. I learned not to ask, because every time I did, he looked at me like I was being ungrateful for the life he'd built. Zara's hands curled into fists. Did anyone else ever slip up? She asked. Say something that didn't match his story. Hana looked down at her wrist. My grandmother, she said softly. His mother. When I was maybe 10, I heard her arguing with him. She said, you can erase the African child from your papers, but not from heaven's records. I asked him what she meant. He slapped me for eavesdropping. I want to meet her, Zara said before she could stop herself. Your grandmother. I want to thank her for saying, African, out loud in that house. She died last year, Hana said quietly. Cancer. Oh, Zara said. I'm sorry. They sat in silence for a moment, listening to the distant harbor sounds through the open window. Why did you run to Busan? Zara asked eventually. Because I couldn't breathe in Seoul anymore, Hana said simply. Every time I tried to make a decision that wasn't on his approved list, he reminded me what I owed him. When I found out about this clinic, I thought, maybe I can do something that feels like it belongs to me. So I came. I helped. I used money he wouldn't miss to pay for treatments that actually mattered to real people. And Milo? Zara asked gently. He ran away one day, Hana said, voice cracking. The gate was left open. He slipped out. My father told me to forget him. It's just a dog, he said. But Milo was not just a dog. I left food at the back fence for weeks. Called his name when no one was around. He never came back. I thought, that was the punishment. For thinking anything was truly mine. You lost him, Zara said quietly. And then I found him. Hana finally looked up, meeting Zara's eyes fully for the first time since they started talking. How did you end up here? She asked. In Seoul. In Korea at all. If she took you away. Bad luck and stubbornness, Zara said with a sad smile. Grandma saved enough for me to go to university. I studied languages. Worked whatever jobs I could. When a chance came to teach English in Korea, I took it. I told myself it was practical. Deeper inside, I think I wanted the land that hurt my mother to see me standing on it anyway. Hana gave a small, genuine laugh. Did it feel good? She asked. Sometimes, Zara admitted. Sometimes it just felt confusing. I kept thinking, why am I drawn to a place that never wanted me? I didn't know the full answer until my dog attacked your heart in an airport. Hana reached out without quite meaning to and laid her hand on Milo's back. As she did, her fingers brushed against Zara's. They both froze. It wasn't electricity, not like in movies. It was something quieter and heavier, a feeling of a puzzle piece finally touching the piece it was cut from. Recognition not of features, but of something in the way they occupied space. What do we do now? Hana whispered. I don't know, Zara said honestly. Part of me wants to walk into your father's office with you, drop the anklet on his desk, and watch the color leave his face. Part of me wants to buy 2 cheap tickets to some country he's never invested in and vanish. He would find us, Hana said. He has lawyers, investigators, favors owed in too many places. You don't grow up in that house without learning how far his reach goes. Then maybe we don't run, Zara said slowly. Maybe we stop acting like we're in his story and write our own. On our own terms. Even if it's messy. You sound like a drama character, Hana said, but there was a small smile in the words. Maybe drama characters sound like people who are tired of being quiet, Zara replied. If anyone is still watching our lives like a series, they're probably waiting to see if we'll choose cowardice or chaos. I'm hoping we choose something brave with a little chaos sprinkled in. Hana huffed out a laugh that turned into a sniffle. You're different, she said. From everyone I know. So are you, Zara said. We can be different next to each other. For as long as you want. Even if it's just for now. I want, for now, to stretch, Hana whispered. For the first time, I want something that isn't on his list. Milo let out a long, content sigh and settled more firmly between them. Outside, the sky deepened toward evening, the harbor lights flicking on one by one. For the first time since arriving in Korea, Zara didn't feel like a guest in someone else's story. She felt like she'd found someone who'd been written out of hers. That feeling lasted until Hana's phone buzzed violently on the table. She glanced at the screen. All the color drained from her face. It's him, she said. My father. The name on the display might as well have been a siren. Don't answer, Zara said instinctively. I have to, Hana whispered. If I don't, he won't just call. He'll send people. He always sends people. The phone buzzed again. And again. Milo's ears flattened. The air thickened. Put it on speaker, Zara said quietly. If he's going to pour poison into your ear, I want to hear the recipe. Hana hesitated, then tapped the answer button and set the phone on the table, screen glowing between them like a small, dangerous window. What do you think you're doing? The voice that filled the room was smooth, deep, and edged with steel. Even through the cheap phone speaker, it carried the weight of someone used to being obeyed. I'm taking some time, Hana said carefully in Korean. Away from Seoul. Like I told you. You told me you needed a few days to think, he corrected. I allowed it. Briefly. Because I believed you still understood your responsibilities. Instead, I receive reports that you've been seen at that clinic again. And now, a pause, sharp. Now, there are rumors of another person. Someone with you. His voice sharpened on that last sentence. Zara could hear the tight control underneath. I haven't done anything wrong, Hana said, though her hand shook. I'm just trying to breathe. You exist where I told you not to exist, he said. That is wrong enough. Come home. Now. Before you embarrass this family further. I'm not just your company's future, Hana said, a tremor under her words. I'm a person. People, he replied coolly, are assets or liabilities. At the moment, you are leaning toward the wrong category. Zara couldn't stay silent. Maybe your categories are the problem, she said in English, leaning toward the phone. Have you tried, daughter? The silence on the line was sharp as glass. Who is that? He demanded in Korean. Nobody, Hana said quickly. Wrong answer, Zara murmured. She raised her voice slightly. Hi, Mr. Kim. My name is Zara. I think our stories overlap more than you'd prefer. Hang up, he ordered Hana. Now. No, Zara said. Not this time. You hung up on my existence over 20 years ago. You don't get to do it twice. The risk shot through her veins like caffeine and lightning combined. She could almost feel Amma somewhere yelling, yes. At an invisible screen. She could imagine Grandma clutching her phone in Ghana, whispering prayers. You have 10 seconds before I trace this call, he said. Great, Zara replied. Use them to listen. She switched to Korean, stumbling on a few syllables but pushing through. You had 2 daughters, she said. Your mother saw them. My grandmother saw them. One with your world's face. One with mine. You kept one and threw the other away. Today, the one you discarded found the one you displayed. We are both more stubborn than you planned. On the other end, she heard a muffled curse. Hana, he said sharply. You let this stranger near you. Do you know what she wants? Money. Status. A piece of what you have. She is nothing to you. If I'm nothing, Zara said, why are you so afraid to speak about me? He didn't answer that. You think you're the first person to knock on my door and claim blood. He sneered. It's easy to print photos and spin stories. My daughter will not be dragged into some scam. I don't want your money, Zara said, voice low and steady. You can keep your buildings and your fancy dinners. I want two things, for you to stop lying to her, and for you to admit that the African child you signed away still exists and isn't ashamed of where she came from. Across from her, Hana swallowed, tears spilling silently down her cheeks. Father, she said softly, is it true? He hesitated. In that tiny pause, more truth lived than in all his speeches. Of course not, he began. That's enough, Hana cut in, surprising both of them. I have spent my whole life taking your version of the truth like medicine. It made me sicker every year. Today, for the first time, I saw something different. It looks like me. It sounds like me. And a dog who loved me before you allowed him ran to her in a crowded airport. If this is a scam, then it's the most committed one in history. Come home, he repeated, but his tone had shifted. The unshakable authority had a hairline crack. We will discuss this there. Privately. I will explain. Will you explain why her mother died with a secret she never chose? Hana asked, voice trembling but strong. Why you told me my mother abandoned us when you abandoned half of us? Why your own mother whispered about an African child? And you called her confused. You are being emotional, he said. You are not thinking clearly. People are manipulating you. No, Hana said. I am thinking clearly for the first time. That's the problem, isn't it? You built my world on half-truths. Now the other half is standing in my living room. Silence. Heavy and dangerous. Listen, Zara said, leaning closer. I don't expect you to suddenly become a decent father because I showed up with a dog and an anklet. But here are some facts. We found each other. We are not going to unfind each other. If you try to separate us again, you won't just be fighting two stubborn women. You will be fighting a world that loves stories about secrets exposed and hates men who try to erase people. You think the world cares about some African girl and a disobedient Korean heiress. He scoffed, but the bravado sounded thinner. I think the world cares about lies, Zara replied, and what happens when they crack. I think some of the people whose money keeps your company fat will care if they see exactly what you did to keep your family photo clean. You own newspapers, channels, politicians. You don't own every screen. You don't own every heart. Hana let out a shaky breath that was almost a laugh. You are making threats, he said. No, Zara answered. Threats are based on fear. I'm making promises. You can count on this. We won't disappear because it's convenient. Your daughter won't unknow what she knows. You cannot drag us back into your silence without leaving marks. There was a clink on the line, like something being set down harder than intended. What do you want? He asked finally. Specifically. Name it. I already did, Zara said. Tell her the truth. All of it. And then let her choose who she wants to be. That is not specific, he snapped. The world is not run on feelings. There are legal implications. Inheritance. Public image. Conditions. I am not a line item, Hana cut in, voice suddenly sharp. I am your child. And so is she, whether you like it or not. If you cannot say that sentence without choking, then you have no say in what we do with you after this. Zara looked at her, pride swelling in her chest. You will regret this, he warned. Maybe, Hana said, but I already regret every year I spent believing you were the only person who ever stayed. I'd rather regret choosing myself than regret never trying. Another long silence. When you calm down and stop letting strangers feed you fantasies, he said finally, my door will be open. But if you stand against me, remember this, the world is cruel. It will not protect you. The world wasn't kind while I was obedient either, Hana replied quietly. At least now, if I get hurt, it'll be in my own story. He made a disgusted sound. You sound like your mother. Thank you, Hana said. The call cut off. For a few seconds, the only sound in the room was the muffled thump of Hana's heartbeat in her own ears, and Milo's soft panting. Then the silence roared. Hana stared at the phone like it was something venomous. Her shoulders sagged. She dropped her head into her hands. Milo pressed against her side, almost climbing into her lap. Zara sat very still, feeling the echo of their father's voice bouncing off old scars she hadn't known she had. That was, she began. Terrifying, Hana finished, voice muffled. And brave, Zara added. Very, very brave. That's the kind of brave people only are when they're tired of being half alive. I feel like I just set fire to the bridge I've been living on, Hana said. I don't even know if there's any ground on the other side. We'll build something, Zara said softly. Even if it's crooked and ugly at first. Even if it's small. Together, Hana asked, looking up, eyes red but steady. If you want, Zara replied. Hana nodded slowly. I do. Nothing about the weeks that followed was easy. Word got back to Seoul faster than they expected. Not through official channels, her father still had those in his pocket, but through staff whispers, cousins in group chats, anonymous accounts that lived for gossip. Did you hear? The chairman's daughter disappeared for a bit. Came back with a girl who says she's her twin. Blurry photos surfaced online, 2 women and a dog walking near the harbor. Comments erupted. Some called it a stunt. Marketing for a new drama. Some called it a scam. She just wants money. Some called it justice. Rich men always have secrets. Let them shake. In Ghana, Grandma watched a low-quality clip of a Korean talk show discussing the rumor of the Kim family's hidden child, with the sound slightly out of sync, and shook her head. Finally, she muttered. They said, African, without choking. In Seoul, Amma spammed Zara with screenshots. Look at this comment, she wrote. This auntie in the comments is fighting for you like she's your lawyer. Internet is mad, oh. Some messages were cruel. She's probably lying. Where's the DNA test? Others were heartbreakingly kind. I hope both daughters find peace. I was the hidden child too. Rooting for them. Only a handful of people knew the whole story. Most knew pieces, distorted by distance and agenda. But that was okay. For the first time, Zara felt like the silence was cracked open. The truth didn't have to be tidy to be real. Hana stepped back from public company roles. Official statements said, personal reasons. Unofficially, investors grumbled. Lawyers hovered. Behind closed doors, tense meetings took place, papers were signed with hands that shook harder than they let anyone see. Through it all, Zara and Hana kept talking. They argued sometimes, about duty, about whether returning for negotiations was betrayal or strategy, about how much they owed a man who had given them life physically and then tried to end it spiritually. They laughed just as often. Over language mix-ups. Over trying to explain Ghanaian aunties to Korean halmanas. Over Milo's habit of sleeping exactly in the doorway like a bouncer. Some nights, they cried in separate cities, on separate calls, grieving the birthdays they never shared, the photos that would never exist. One crisp afternoon months later, they returned to the place where everything had cracked open for the first time, Incheon Airport. This time, there were no bodyguards. No VIP gate drama. No leash ripped from Zara's hand. Just 2 women, walking side by side through the terminal, Milo trotting between them, leash held loosely. Why are we here again? Hana asked, adjusting her scarf. Practice, Zara said. We met here when we didn't know we were meeting. Now we're walking through it on purpose. It feels important. Without running toward or away from anything, Hana added. Exactly, Zara said. They flowed with the crowd, just another pair of travelers. No one pointed. No one filmed. Life had other flights to catch. Near the spot where Milo had broken free that first day, he paused. He sniffed the air, then looked back at them, tail wagging slowly. You remember, Hana murmured, crouching to scratch him behind the ears. Of course you do. You're the reason all this started. People say dogs forget, Zara said. I don't believe them anymore. Do you ever regret all of this? Hana asked quietly, standing again. Finding me. Pushing. Making that call. Zara thought about it. Really thought. I regret the pain you had to feel, she said. I regret the way his words still cling to you. I regret that it took this long. But you. Us. No. I don't regret. You. Hana's lips trembled. Good, she whispered. Because the space where you were supposed to be, hurt. For years. I just didn't know why. It still hurts sometimes, but it's less empty now. Messy. But less lonely. Same, Zara said. They wandered to a large window overlooking the runways. Planes moved like slow, heavy birds, taxiing, lifting, landing. Lives leaving, lives arriving. If someone is watching us right now, Zara said, half teasing, half serious, what do you think they see? Two women with a cute dog, Hana said. Maybe sisters. Maybe friends. Maybe strangers who just happen to walk well together. And if those people have been with us since Milo first ripped that leash from my hand, Zara added, they're very patient. Very, Hana agreed. Maybe they recognize something of themselves, Zara said. Maybe they also have missing chapters. People they were told not to ask about. Maybe they're still deciding whether to knock on doors that were slammed on them years ago. Hana wasn't looking at the window anymore. Her eyes were fixed somewhere beyond, where no glass could reach. If that's you, she said softly, we can't tell you what to do. Only you know what you can carry. But here's something we learned, the truth hurts whether you look at it or not. Sometimes looking at it lets you choose how. And sometimes, Zara added, the truth brings you someone you didn't know you'd been missing your whole life. A sister, a friend, or just a clearer picture of yourself. They watched a plane lift off, rising slowly into gray-blue sky. If you had to say one thing to him right now, Hana said, what would it be? Zara considered the question, then surprised herself. Thank you, she said. Hana frowned. For what? Not for what he did, Zara said quickly. He doesn't get thanks for that. But thank you for underestimating us. For thinking one of us could grow up erased and the other controlled, and neither would ever question it. His mistake gave us the chance to prove him wrong. Hana smiled slowly. I can accept that kind of thank you. Milo barked once, tail wagging, like he agreed. They turned away from the window and walked toward the exit. They passed a family arguing about snacks, a group of students taking blurry selfies, an elderly couple holding hands like it was the most normal thing in the world. Near the sliding doors, Zara paused. Do you ever think about telling our story properly? She asked. Not as scandal, as warning, or comfort. Sometimes, Hana admitted. Part of me wants to hide forever. Part of me wants to put it on the biggest screen we can find and say, look. This is what happens when people treat children like details they can delete. If it ever does become a story people hear, Zara said, I hope they don't just listen for the drama. I hope they pay attention to the quiet moments too. The ones where we chose not to run away from each other. The ones where strangers were kind when they had no reason. The ones where we forgave ourselves for taking so long to ask the right questions. And if some algorithm next week decides that someone out there needs to hear it, Hana added with a crooked smile, I won't complain. Neither will I, Zara said. If you're one of those people, by the way, and you found something in all this that made you feel a tiny bit less alone, you're allowed to say so. In a comment, in a message, or just quietly, to yourself. And if you want more stories that don't pretend life is simple, you already know how to find them again. You know the buttons. She didn't name them. She didn't have to. By now, anyone who spent time watching stories knew that liking, sharing and subscribing weren't just chores, they were a way of saying, more of this. Please, don't let this kind of story disappear. As they stepped out of the airport into the pale light, the air felt different than on that first chaotic day. Not lighter because everything was fixed, nothing was that easy. Their father still existed. His power still cast long shadows. There would be awkward meetings, court documents, relatives choosing sides for reasons that had nothing to do with truth. But the silence that had held their lives like glass had shattered. They stood among the shards and realized they were not made of the same fragile material. Milo trotted ahead, tail high, leading them toward the parking lot. Where to now? Hana asked. Home, Zara said. Which one? Hana pressed. Zara smiled. We'll figure it out, she said. One visit at a time. One phone call. One meal. We have years of stolen time to rebuild. We don't have to fix it in one season. They walked side by side, not identical, not interchangeable, but undeniably connected. Two stories that had been forced apart, now slowly, stubbornly braiding themselves together again. And somewhere in a small apartment in Ghana, an old woman watched a shaky online clip of two women and a dog leaving an airport and whispered, finally. If you've stayed with them all the way to this moment, you already know something about patience and holding tension and wanting to see strangers on a screen find some kind of peace. Maybe that's because, deep down, you're searching for a bit of your own. Whatever you decide to do with your own unanswered questions after this, let this be a quiet reminder, your story is allowed to be complicated. You are allowed to go looking. You are allowed to ask the questions people were scared you'd ask. And if one day you need another story to walk beside, you know where they live now. You know how to come back.